A warm welcome to a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta, and here's wishing all our viewers a very happy new year. While New Year's Day brings with it a chance to look back and reminisce, it also serves as an opportunity to set goals for the year to come. 2021 saw businesses trying to pivot and improvise. Today, we'll take a look at the main priorities leaders should focus on when growing their business goals in 2022. To find out how a CEO approaches a new year, Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, will be in conversation with Suresh Narayanan, chairman and managing director, Nestlé India, who joins us from his home in Chennai. Let's get ready to melt with Suresh Narayanan.
Happy New Year, Suresh.
Happy New Year to you too, Anant. And to all the listeners, I hope it is a fantastic year, it's a healthy year, and hopefully a hopeful year.
Right. So, I wanted a different kind of interview. When the lockdown began, the first interview we did at Melt was with you. And we were talking about the challenges of the lockdown and so on and so forth. And I think that set the tone for many companies and CEOs for the year to come. I'm not saying they necessarily followed you, but certainly they took some cues from you. Now, I want you to set the tone for all of us, including lay people, for 2022. So what are the priorities of Suresh Narayan for 2022 beyond metrics and growth and double digit and double dip and L and V and all these shapes? What is your focus for the year?
Thank you, Anand. Thank you for this opportunity. And, you probably hit the nail on the head. This is not the time, and this continues to be not the time to be talking about matrices of growth and profitability and return and cash flows and various things that we all do. I mean, I'm not saying that as business people we are going to be walking away from it. But if there's anything that 2021 has taught us, it is two things. Number one, you are not master of your destiny. And number two, it is your people and your people alone who make a difference. I've learned these two lessons during the course of 2021. We began on a very different note. We thought that 2020 was the year of the pandemic. 2021 will be very smooth. It will be very, very normal. We were planning for all kinds of things to happen. And none of it has happened, or only some of it has happened. So I think the humility to accept that you are not masters of your destiny is an important lesson for all human beings, irrespective of whether you are a corporate leader or you are a teacher or you are a civil servant or indeed you are in any other walk of life. What's really hitting us is the fact that you are not masters of your destiny and that you have to be humble about it and accept it irrespective of which walk of life you belong to. I think that is something that will carry forward in 2022 as well. We should not be making long-term plans. We should not be making plans that are grandiose, plans that are definitive, plans that become cast in stone. I think all those certainties or all those virtues of decision making that we were born to be with and that we were trained to practice is today being put aside because COVID is deciding what your future is going to be. Whether it is the Delta variant or whether it is the Omicron or whether it is anything that comes after this, we have no idea. And therefore, I think this is probably going to be the single most important capability of human beings to cope with the uncertainty, to keep your chin up, and yet to be positive about the future. This would be probably a muscle and a skill and a mindset that will become very important. The second priority for me is, and it remained the priority for me in 2020 and 2021, is the safety, security, and well-being of my people. Businesses are made over decades, over centuries. We will write off these few years of relatively modest growth, of relatively modest matrices very quickly. What you cannot obliterate are the scars on the culture and the values and the spirit of the organization. Those are permanent. And one of the hallmarks of any leadership, and you can see this, Anant, across the world, whether it is political leadership or economic leadership or social leadership or commercial leadership, those that have managed to cope with the crisis and the pandemic have been those who have placed their people at the center of their universe. For me, the safety, the security, the well being of my people is the most important element of my leadership. Everything else follows. So, as we are talking today about Omicron and what will happen to it, my discussions with my team is on how we can prevent its onslaught on our people. What are the ways in which our vaccination can be even faster? Those few cases of people who have not got themselves vaccinated for medical reasons, can we find a way in which they can also get vaccinated? So the human aspect of compassion, of empathy, of humility, of trust are not old-fashioned words, Anant, that you and I started our career with. These are the words, these are the flesh and bones of what leadership would be like in 2022 as well.
Suresh, you said for you, the safety, security, and well being of your colleagues is of paramount interest. Now, these three come at a cost to a company. It is easy, relatively, to understand a human being empathetic. How does an organization become empathetic?
Look, I think, I always believe, Anant, and this is the hard lesson of leadership. As the Irish say, the fish rots from the head. Every organization, culture flows from the top. And if the leader and the team around the leader believe that people and people centricity, compassion, empathy are the center of what will drive this organization, its initiatives, and its relationship with all the stakeholders, then that is the way it will be. Then elements of costs, elements of returns, elements of opportunity, trade-offs between revenue and profits and whatever else you have to trade off with will vanish. Because let's remember one thing. If your people go, everything goes. If your sales go and your profits go, they go for a finite time. But rebuilding back the competencies, rebuilding back the ethos, rebuilding back the culture, rebuilding back the flesh and blood of the organization takes decades. And those of us who, as leaders, have traded off our people for profits, I think have made, unfortunately, the wrong choice for the future.
Right.
Because their organizations will get to be known to be mercenary, will get known to be heartless. And today, when we are talking about the great resignation debate, as it were, these are the factors that are going to become important. Nobody looks at your balance sheet, for God's sake, and sticks with you. Nobody looks at your market capitalization and says, "Oh wow, this is the top 15 company in this country. Let me stick to Nestlé." No. How has the leadership behaved? How has the leadership contributed? How has the leadership navigated? What kind of tone, tenor has been set in the organization? These are the things that will become germane to the leadership exercise in 2022.
When you started off with whatever exercises in 2020, we spoke in April 2020. That's when we spoke. You decided instinctively to do certain things. Now, in hindsight, we are talking 1.5 years later. Do you think you've had an unplanned benefit by doing good? The old adage, doing well by doing good. You have done good. Have you done well because you've done good?
Look, Anant, I think, the principle of leadership that I have always chosen, and I hope I will choose it in the last day of my corporate career, is to live to the heartbeat of your conscience and to do what is right. Ultimately, as leaders, we make good choices, not so good choices, and wrong choices. But if you are driven by a sense of personal values and purpose, and if you are driven by a ethos that drives you in a particular direction, which also resonates with your conscience, you never regret what you have done. I don't regret what I have done. I think the whole step that we took of having the programs of protecting our people who are working in the factories and protecting the front line in terms of insurance policies for them against COVID was the right thing to do. It was a humane thing to do. And what is right and what is humane are never traded off with anything that is material. Because ultimately, what the organization would remember is that during difficult times, the company put its arms around me and protected me. It didn't leave me in the lurch. It might have cost the company a couple of million rupees or a couple of crores of rupees. That's fine. That's fine. That is really what you need, and you owe it to your people. So I don't even look at that part of the equation. The equation that I look at is: was I fair? Was I trustworthy? Was I empathetic? Was I compassionate? Was I trustworthy with my people? And I think those are elements, Anant, that there is no price to. You can't put a tag to it. It's not millions and billions. It runs into astronomical sums you can't even imagine.
Right. Suresh, in organizations like yours, which have operations in, most of the world, most of the countries of the world, it's challenging for one country to chart its own course on empathy and being good and so on and so forth, because the normal tendency is for some other country to say, why can't I do it, or why can't I do something else, because there is a sort of breakaway from culture. How do you deal with that?
Look, I think one of the things, Anand, I'm truly blessed with is to lead the Nestlé organization in India, because the culture of Nestlé, the purpose of Nestlé is a simple line: being a force for good. When you say being a force for good, it means not only doing good, being good, but acting good. And therefore, this translates into whatever elements it has across countries differently. In some of my colleagues across the world, the being good has translated into availability of products and services and various other things during difficult times. For me, being good has been acting good, which is protecting my people, protecting secondary sales force of the company, the partners, the stakeholders. This has been the important part. The farmers, this has been my part of it. So each of us could have a different take on being good, on behaving good, and on acting good. But ultimately, it is the unison of being a force for good that unites us all together. And therefore, it makes my task easier. If I am plowing a different field as compared to everybody else in the organization, and indeed what the global organization is, the board of directors, now I'm governed in India by the board of directors. The first and only mandate that my board of directors gave me as the head of the company was: take care of your people, protect your people. Everything else follows. So it's also important to have a board that sees synchronously with your thought process. If they turned around and said, look, I don't know at this moment, what is important is the sales and profits and revenues and this and that and the other, we might have had a conflict. I might have still done what I think was right, but it would have been under some turmoil. But I'm blessed with the fact that I have a team, and I also have a board, and I also have a parent who thought synchronously at the same time and said, yes, this is the right thing to do. And here we are.
Right. So here we are. Now tell me, for 2022, what is the focus for Suresh Narayan? This could be Suresh Narayan, the person, and then Suresh Narayan, the professional, both.
Look, I make, as little distinction, Anand, between the person and the profession, because ultimately the profession that I do must reflect who I am as a person, what purpose and what values, what behaviors and what disciplines I hold dear. I can't put them into two different boxes. So for me, I think there are three very important P's that are important for 2022. Number one is people. People and people centricity continues and will continue to be dominating the dialogue that I have, the thought process that I have, because we are not walking away from the pandemic. God knows what else is going to evolve. And I'm not one of those who believes that unless the task is completed, that it is done. So that's number one. Number two, planet. I think this environment and the way in which we are moving has pointed to us not only the fallibility of human beings, but also the criticality of treating the planet with dignity and respect. We are embarked as a company on numerous sustainability initiatives, and it is my hope that with the team, we will be able to energize many of these initiatives in 2022. And the third is on partnerships. Remember in 2020 and 2021, 100,000 farmers whom we worked with in the Punjab, we collected every drop of milk that they gave us. Every spice farmer who works with us, every coffee farmer who works with us, have that trustworthy relationship with Nestlé that we will do our best to ensure that they are never put into discomfort. So, people, planet, and partnerships would be clearly the focus that we would have in 2022. And yes, it has been my experience, results bear it out, that the fourth P of performance also happens. If you do these things right, performance also happens in the organization. And that's something that you cannot walk away from. So these would be the three priorities that I would set for myself.
Thank you. And I'll give you a fourth P, fifth P, because you took the fourth as performance. The fifth is peace of mind. I hope all of you have lots of it this year. And thank you so much, Suresh. I hope we have better times and we're able to meet across the table from each other, have a cup of coffee. Thank you so much and Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Anant. Thank you. Thank you, Anant. Happy New Year to you again. And I do hope that for all our listeners, yes, indeed, that peace of mind comes first. And also that their perspectives on life looks at hope. I think hope is what moves this world. And I would really urge all the people who are watching this program, don't ever give up on hope. I think that is something that will drive you, that will energize you. But with that, my gratitude to you, Anant. As always, a real pleasure talking to you. Have a great year ahead. And I hope all our listeners and viewers also have a fantastic year ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was Suresh Narayanan sharing his key priorities for the new year. He is now presenting the MEL cheat sheet. People need to be placed at the center of an organization. Leaders need to value people over profit. Partnerships will be critical in 2022. With that, let's now move to this week's creative picks. Nike All Conditions Gear has released a 2.5-minute ad called Elementary, featuring rock climber Eugenie Lee as she prepares for her climb. As Lee climbs, her worldview becomes broader, and for the viewer, it feels liberating. The ad is visually stunning, shows the art of climbing, and sheds a new light on the sport. Check it out.
You muddle my mind, you million mingling minds. I love you, but I miss this more. How weird to not have a busy hand. What shall I fill it with? Maybe that's the point. Pack light, no room for a heavy mind. Control the clutter, or it will control you. My arcane pursuits of scaling rock, not the easiest but the hardest, is maybe my attempt to reach the sublime. When there is no way, unless the conditions are right, mind, breath, strength, moves, friction. It all comes together. Mindless flow, state, perfection.
WhatsApp has released a global campaign that encourages people to share their best wishes for the year with their loved ones. The campaign features an approximately 4-minute-long ad that beautifully demonstrates the personal moments that help people move into the new year. There's also a shorter 30-second version that shows us that the new year is defined not by the countdowns or fireworks, but when you get a special message from a partner, parent, or a close friend. It's a heartwarming ad that focuses on telling a diverse set of stories across geographies. And that's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready to Melt. And stay updated with all that's happening in the world of advertising and marketing with our daily Melt update on our website, readytomelt.com. I shall see you next week. Goodbye.